This is the last conversation I will have on this before we move on to the whole Antonio Brown saga. But I never got your answer on this. And me and Puma hit on this a little bit last year. You just mentioned you were high on the Cardinals before the year started, and the book is out on the Cardinals now. And last year they started out hot. Kyler Murray had an injury, and they faltered down the stretch and make the playoffs. This year they started out hot. They were unbelievable in the beginning of the year. Kyler Murray had another injury, and they've kind of whirled down the stretch as well, losing 3 out of the last 4. So, with that being said, is there something you as a fan can point to about the Cardinals, whether it's Cliff Kingsbury and the coaching or Kyler Murray and who he is and his injuries? Is there something you can point to that you've seen that makes you wonder, well, what's happening here? Why are they faltering down the stretch as the season progresses?
It's tough for me to put it on the coach because even when Kyler Murray was out,
Yeah,
that team
2-1,
was
right?
able to win with
Yeah.
Colt McCoy,
Yeah.
with 2-1 with McCoy. It seems like the team gets tired and injured down the stretch. I mean, they're playing without DeAndre Hopkins right now. You know he's not going to be back to the playoffs. They were without James Conner in the game against Dallas. I know they won the game, but I mean he's been a touchdown machine for that team with Chase Edmonds back there. Pretty good 200 monster at running back. Maybe it's a culture thing, and again that may come down to the coach and the quarterback, kind of that leadership in the locker room kind of thing. But it's tough, and it's tough to watch because they were what 10-0,
Yeah.
and now they're 11-5.
Yeah.
Now they're 11-5, and in the 5 hole, not even leading their division, and unless the Rams lay an egg on Sunday, they're going to lose their division, which is crazy to think about. They're kind of like last year's Steelers, where they were what 13-0 or something like that. They were rolling, and then right down the stretch, they just blew it. And I think they lost the first game they played in the playoffs last year.
Blown out by the Browns,
yeah,
remember?
yeah, they got blown out by the Browns coming off the COVID stuff too. So I want to say probably if I'm going to pick something here, I want to say culture 1, 2. Coaching, just because these guys are getting hurt all the time. Maybe they're not in the best shape that they should be in to withstand the full length of the regular season. I think that plays a big part in it. And then Kyler Murray, his play is we were talking about him as an MVP candidate at like week 8 again. We were doing the same thing we did last year and fell right off a cliff again, right down back to earth. And that's definitely a part of it. So.
Yeah, and my initial inclination was to blame it on Cliff Kingsbury, but you hit it around the head, man. They went 2-1 with Cole McCoy when Kyler Murray was out. Like, who the hell can do that with Cole McCoy? And they look decent in some of those games. I think you might hit it on the head with the culture in the locker room and just who Kyler Murray is. If you watch Kyler Murray closely, I've always had a problem with some of his body language, with the way he kind of blame deflects on the field on the fly. He throws an interception, where it's his fault, but he tries to make it out to be the wide receiver's fault. I think there's a lot to be said about just who he is a leader or lack thereof, and some of the stuff that he permeates in the locker room. I know one of the reasons they brought AJ Green in was, yes, sure, he was going to be another wide receiver threat, but they all said that he was such a good leader in Cincinnati that maybe he can bring that to the locker room as well. And that, for me, and putting 2 and 2 together, it kind of seems that there's a void at the quarterback position with the leadership, and that might be what we're seeing here down the stretch.
Which is tough to see because that kid is so talented. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. Just in terms of his skill set, the kid can take off. He's fast and he's got a hell of an arm. So something upstairs clearly isn't there with him. Like you said with the body language, I've noticed that too, in watching some of their games, and it's a bummer for me because like I said last year, I was all aboard the Cardinals train. Patriots were faltering. I was all aboard them, and they let me down. I was on them again this year. Like I wanted them to make some noise in the conference. They still may. Who knows? Any given Sunday in the playoffs. But it's tough to see right now.